Hello, welcome. I'm Zahid, and thank you for clicking this video. I'm so happy that you're here and you're joining me on this journey of me becoming, most importantly, an avid reader. When I started this channel, my goal was to sort of improve on my avid reading and trying to implement reading into my daily routine. And so I've been enjoying this, and it's something I've always wanted to do. So it just makes me happy knowing that I'm finally, you know, adding this sort of wonderful passion into my life because I've always wanted to read. I've always wanted to, sort of commit my time to reading more, and so just being able to constantly do it recently and being able to share this journey with you guys makes me happy because it moves my life, and I've heard based on people's comments that these videos have been helpful, maybe because you have like assignments in school that you have to read this book I've been reading, and this series that I've been doing on Canadian literature, specifically on this book called Moon of the Crusted Snow by waubgeshig, which I've been having so much fun reading and sharing it with you guys. So thank you for being here. Um, to give a little background on myself, I'm a student currently at community college, um, and I'm part of a reading club at my community college, and so we've been reading Canadian literature, which is something I've been enjoying. Um, and by the way, guys, it feels really nice outside today, and I'm enjoying this weather. Like it's not too hot. It's chilly, and then has a bit of sun in it. It's a beautiful day out today, and I'm enjoying it deeply. So my mood is a little enlightened today because I just feel so much joy because weather is just making me feel so amazing. But I'm going to now read chapter 7. So if you haven't watched my other sort of chapter readings on this particular book series, please do watch the other videos before you watch this one. Because I think it's important to sort of watch those as it gives you a bit more information to what led or what is going to be leading to whatever events you hear me read about in this new chapter that I'll be reading today. But like my other videos, I like to first like sort of start about sort of talking about what I've read so far in this book. And so my sort of summary is that I'm currently reading about a small indigenous community that is located in the northern part of Canada, known as the Anishinaabe community. And in this community, hunting, fishing, giving back is sort of one way that is prevalent within their tradition and their customs. And throughout the book, we've been introduced to certain characters. And one character I always sort of first mention is Even White Sky. He, like I described in other series or other videos I've made, he's a hardworking man who deeply sort of cares for his family. He enjoys hunting because this is something he's done from a very young age and something he learned to do within this small community because it's a way of surviving. It's a survival skill that he gladly learned from his dad, and now he applies it as a father of two kids. The kids' name are Mygon and Nagons. The Mygon is a 5-year-old boy, and Nagons is a 3-year-old girl who he just enjoys being their father, and he also appreciates his partner and the kid's mother, who I will now introduce. Her name is Nicole McLeod, and her and Even have knew each other for, since kindergarten actually. But obviously it didn't form that sort of love then, but gradually, I think after or during high schools when they sort of showing those intimate affection, they end up being couples, and since then they've been these couples, and to also sort of highlight on their age. I don't think I've done any other videos, but they're about in their 20s, almost 30s, so I would say mid 20s. Um, and so, they love each other, they love their family, but something that is currently happening within this book that is building the plot is that in this small community, they're currently facing a power outage. Therefore, they have to sort of make this sudden change in their lives that's affecting them in a negative way because now they have no power slash electricity. They don't have high internet access. They're not even able to watch TV. They're not able to communicate the way they're normally able to communicate. Kids are not able to sort of go to school because now these factors have been, impacting them negatively, causing them to have to make adjustments, having to, find ways to deal with their life during this period of emergency. And so one way is that, recently in the previous, I think, two chapters, or the last chapter before I'm going to read this chapter, we have community leaders, who, a community leader, his name is Terry, who sort of is asking even, because he's, what he does for a living is a maintenance guy, and he sort of keeps the community together, and now they're asking even, and his best friend, sorry, I forget, I'm blanking out his name, but his best friend Isaiah, yes, who he calls Izzy. They've been friends for a while since they were young, and they grew up together, and they both work as maintenance guys, and so they're sort of requiring these two men, the community leaders, requiring two men to sort of help out right now because they're trying to find ways to power on the generator because they don't have electricity. And so this sort of a slight example of how now they have to make a sudden change. They have to do things that they didn't have to do because they've sort of experienced it maybe one or two times, but never this long. It's made them okay. They need to sort of find ways to deal with this emergency because they don't even know how long it's going to be. Is it ever going to end? Is it ever going to stop? Are we going to have to live our lives without no electricity? So these are questions that I think one should ask oneself as we sort of also see the characters' attitudes. I think the character attitudes have sort of been also a prevalent sort of part of this book because through different characters we see their reactions this time. For example, in Even's family, Even and Nicole are sort of now that there's no TV, there's no like sort of TV particularly in their family and electricity, they're sort of having to talk to each other now. They do talk to each other fairly, but not as often now because now they feel the need to do that. They don't have any sort of entertainment. So human connection, human communication is one thing they're doing. We could also see that through their kids, Nagans and Mygon, who normally before they go to school they watch TV, but now during this time in which they have no electricity, they can't watch TV. Now those two kids are sort of talking to each other. These little kids are sort of talking to one another, and it's so interesting because even it's like, oh, he didn't he was kind of surprised by that. And it just shows how character attitude plays a huge role. Another example is when Evan goes to visit his parents, his mother, Patricia, and his father, Dan, and particularly Patricia, when she is currently trying to do something on her computer, he's sort of getting frustrated because maybe the website wasn't, not even maybe, the website wasn't loaded and the mouse sort of wasn't clicking on what she wanted. So now she's getting sort of frustrated. She's like, this goddamn internet. And so she calls Even to help her, and it's such a funny moment. Um, but yes, and we also sort of have this part in which one of the reasons Even went to his parents' place to sort of give them some of the hunting he did because he caught this moose and slash bull that he had in the refrigerator, and then he went home to his family's his parents' place to give them this hunting that he did and cut bits and pieces of it and then went to give it to his family. And that's one thing that's common in this community. They're given back to maybe those who weren't able to hunt during the time that hunting was that was the season of hunting, and given back to people they love and cherish, like his parents. And so, seeing human connections, seeing things that human beings do for their loved ones and for people within their community is also something I think it's important to mention on. And just as we continue to read, think of this setting because it's playing a huge role in their lives right now. It's affecting them in ways that I think human beings necessarily don't want to have to experience because it puts them in just a deeply negative position. Yeah, and so keep thinking about that, and then we have a moment. Sorry, one last thing. We have a moment in which now they're sort of drinking and trying to forget what's actually true within their life to sort of keep going. So drinking is one way that they sort of keep going and sort of forgetting the horrible things in their lives. And so this is common within some families and households. And despite it being banned in their community due to unfortunate events that have been really sad. So, but they feel as though drinking is their way of sort of forgetting. And like many human lives, we're very fragile, and so we do things to cope. And I think that's also one thing to sort of think about and see, like again, the character attitudes and how they're sort of dealing with this unfortunate time in their lives. Okay, I will now read chapter 7. Chapter 7. The wind picked up in the early afternoon. Dark clouds rolled in right after. Flurries soon blew around and settled on the ground, speckling the dead leaves and dirt roads with white flakes that clustered in small, light piles. The howl of the wind kept almost everyone indoors. As the sky grew darker with increasing snow, families turned their attention to creating comfort in the bright, warm confines of their homes. Everyone knew a blizzard was imminent. It was usual this time of year. But the radio and online weather reports were silent, and no one was sure exactly when the weather would hit. But here it came, clothing roofs, stairs, driveways, and roads with blanket of snow that seemed to thicken with each blink of the eyes. Evening seemed to creep in quickly. Men and women scurried outside to shovel driveways, salt stairs, and halt wood. Dogs huddled in their shelters and under porches. Snow squeezed the remaining birds out of the fall sky. The temperature drop in the building wind bit at cheeks and stung eyes and nostrils. Each breath chilled, making survival chores harder. Sweat soaked toques and froze in eyebrows. Hands cramped around shovel handles as fingers grew numb. The only vehicles to brave the roads were the trucks of the band's employees. A major snowfall meant they were immediate on the clock, clearing snow from the dirt and gravel route on the res. Each drove on his own to the shop where the plows, trucks, and salters were parked. They rolled them out in careful successions, relying on their customary choreography to keep the roads clear. If the blizzard didn't let up, it was a routine they'd be repeating into the night. Mygon looked out the window his small hands holding on to the wooden sill so he could hike himself up onto tiptoes. He was barely tall enough to peer into the darkness. He saw blurry white headlights coming from the left through the thick, blowing snow. "Mommy, is that Daddy?" "Maybe, my son," Nicole answered, not looking up from the book she was reading to Nagans. "Wave anyway, even if it's not him. The other guys would be happy to see you." The boy waved and smiled widely, even though his small head in the large picture window would be barely visible from the road. He continued flapping his hands onto the pickup truck with the blade attached to the front bumper was well out of sight. The smell of bannock wafted through the house, enriching the aroma of the moose stew simmering on the stove top. It was comfort food, but it was also fuel in harsh winter weather. Nicole had offered to make it for the guys working tonight, for whenever they needed a rest and a meal. Even had spread the word, and the crew would likely start taking up the offer in the coming hours. Despite the hardship and tragedy that made up a significant part of this First Nations legacy, the Anishinaabe spirit of community generally prevailed. There was no panic on the night of this first blizzard, although there had been confusions in the days leading to it. Survival had always been an integral part of their culture. It was their history. The skills they needed to preserve in this northern terrain, far from their original homeland further south, were proud knowledge held close through the decades of imposed adversity. They were handed down to those in the next generation willing to learn. Each winter marked another milestone. Nicole closed the children's book, Jid, no, Jidmu Minwa Gungwas, and kissed the top of Nagon's head. "There you go, my little star," she said, switching from the Anishinaabe switching from the Anishinaabe Moen in the book to English. "Now you know about the squirrel and the chipmunk. You two stay put. I'll be back up." She got up from the couch and walked down to the basement to put more wood in the stove. "Everything will be okay, my loves," she said into the dark silence. And that is the end of chapter 7. Quite short. It was brief. I think probably one of the shortest I've read. But chapter 7. Um, so it sort of starts with how the weather is getting worse and worser. Um, you know, typically during times like this, they have sort of the radio stations or news stations sort of announcing how the weather is going to be when certain storms are going to happen. In this case, when blizzards are going to occur, and when sort of the snow is going to become quite large, and we're going to start seeing snow a lot on the roads, on people's stairs. Certain animals or stray animals like dogs have to sort of hide under porches and just certain areas to prevent them from being in this cold weather. And it's so interesting and so sad that during this time of harsh winter, they also sort of have to endure just not having power and having to do power outage. It's so unfortunate to me, and you know, gladly, survival has always been something the Anishinaabe community has sort of been very highly sort of proficient at. They they believe, finding ways to endure through the obstacles, not endure, but sort of fight off and face off adversities is their way of, that's sort of their custom. And so we read that, despite during this harsh winters, they're finding ways to make it work. People like even and the maintenance workers within the community are doing things like trying to get the snow out of the road and clear things to make it easy for community members to be able to do things and move and get from one place to another. And we have a slight moment in which the kids are in the car and they see the workers working, and you know there's a moment in which the boy Mygon, which is Evan's son, is sort of questioning, is that daddy, should I wave? But then his mother's like, no, you should still wave because these are people and these are community members who will be glad to see you waving at them. And I find that really nice of Nicole to say that, because it's always good to be not only to be kind, but to sort of show genuine human connection by doing things like waving. It might seem simple, but things like that move people. Things like that make people's day better. And so her sort of just saying wave regardless. As I drive, it was really, really heartwarming for me, and I think that's very important today. And I think within their community, I was happy to hear that she promoted that and she wanted her son to still wave. And as you continue to read, the setting become something I think it's important to always think of, because it just makes you understand how moods, attitudes of people, humans are feeling during this time, and sort of the changes in their actions, the things they're doing during this time. I think it's important to think of that because it makes the story much better to understand, and it just shows just how human beings interact and deal with things. And yeah, that is sort of my sort of brief summary. I'm going to open my book and see if there's anything else I want to sort of highlight on in the book. I also find it really nice that towards the end, Nicole reads to the kids. That was also sort of kind, not kind, but sorry, sort of heartwarming to me, because I think it's always important for parents to read stories that reflect their culture. And she was reading, like they mentioned in the book, it was a children's book that sort of was, I'm assuming it's a anishinaabe book, and I think it's important for little kids to read about their culture and sort of that identity, because it helps them sort of have sort of more authority, not necessarily authority, but sort of more meaning and sort of more confidence within who they are, because they know the history about their sort of culture and identity. So that was meaningful to me to read about. And yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you were able to gain sort of knowledge from this video, and I hope you enjoyed me reading. Thank you, and I hope you continue to read and continue to tune into my channel. Yes, and I can't wait so I am able to post the next video, and I hope you come and support. Please subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this video. Have a wonderful one, and bye. Thank you.